The day the aliens arrived changed everything. It was a clear Tuesday morning when the massive ships appeared in Earth's skies. They hovered silently over major cities around the world, casting long shadows that chilled even the bravest souls. In Washington, D.C., government officials scrambled to respond. The military went on high alert. Fighter jets circled the alien vessels, but kept their distance. No one wanted to start a war with beings who could cross the stars. Jack Harrington watched the scene unfold from the Pentagon's command center. At 55, with gray hair and the weathered face of a career naval officer, Jack had seen many crises. But nothing like this. President Eleanor Grant had appointed him as Earth's ambassador of extraterrestrial affairs just 3 days ago. It was supposed to be a quiet position, mostly theoretical. Now it was the most important job on the planet. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," said a young communications officer. "They want to address the United Nations." 24 hours later, Jack stood in the UN General Assembly Hall in New York. The room buzzed with nervous energy. World leaders whispered to each other, fear and wonder mixing in equal measure. Vice President Samantha Wright sat beside Jack, her usual confidence visibly shaken. "I don't like this," she whispered. "They could have contacted us before entering our atmosphere. This feels like a show of force." Jack nodded. "Navy taught me that when you show up with your biggest ships, you're not coming for dinner." The main doors opened. A hush fell over the assembly. 3 alien beings glided into the room. They stood about 7 feet tall with slender bodies covered in pale blue scales. Their eyes were large and entirely black, set in narrow faces with no visible nose or mouth. Yet somehow the middle one spoke. "I am High Collector Zix Vorel of the Galactic Hegemony," it said, its voice strangely musical. "We bring greetings from the 7 civilized species of our alliance." The alien explained that the hegemony had watched Earth for decades. Now that humans had developed basic space travel, it was time to welcome them into the galactic community. Zix Vorel spoke of amazing technology, medical advances, and interstellar trade. The assembled leaders began to relax. Some even smiled. Then came the terms. "As is customary for new member worlds, Earth will contribute a protection fee to the hegemony," said Zix Vorel. "This amounts to 35% of all planetary resources annually." The room erupted in confused murmurs. Jack leaned forward, sure he had misheard. 35% of all resources? Asked the Secretary General. That would include water, minerals, fossil fuels, agricultural products? "All resources," confirmed Zix Vorel. "The fee is standard. It ensures our fleet protects your world from hostile forces and pays for your integration into our network." Jack felt cold anger building in his chest. "And what do we get in return, specifically?" The alien turned those black eyes toward him. "You get to live, Ambassador Harrington. You get to continue existing as a species." The true nature of the visit became clear. This wasn't first contact, it was a shakedown. "What if we refuse?" asked President Grant, standing up from her seat. Zix Vorel made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "The last world that refused no longer exists. We find it wasteful to destroy potential resource planets, but we will if necessary." Images appeared on the large screens around the hall. Pictures of a shattered world, its surface cracked and glowing with magma. Jack recognized it as the technique used in mining asteroids, but on a planetary scale. "You have 30 Earth days to prepare your first payment," said Zix Vorel. "We have placed monitoring satellites in orbit to observe your compliance. A collection fleet will arrive at that time." Without waiting for a response, the aliens turned and left the hall. The emergency meeting at the White House lasted all night. Military leaders wanted to fight immediately. Business leaders suggested trying to negotiate better terms. Scientists worried about humanity's chances against such advanced technology. "We need more information," Jack said, cutting through the arguments. "These aliens, this hegemony, they've done this before. They have a system. No one develops a tax collection scheme for just one target." Dr. Alan Pierce, the Director of Advanced Weapons Research, nodded in agreement. "They called us a new member world. That implies many others." President Grant looked around the room. "Options?" We could try to destroy their monitoring satellites, suggested General Frank Martinez. But if they detect the attack, they might respond with force before we're ready. Or we could appear to comply while preparing a defense, said Samantha. Right. Buy ourselves time. Jack thought about his years commanding naval vessels. In my experience, bullies don't stop taking lunch money because you ask nicely. They stop when they get punched in the nose. President Grant stood up. I need options on my desk in 48 hours, real options. If these aliens think Earth is just going to hand over a third of everything we have, they don't understand human history very well. The next day, Jack found himself deep underground in a facility few people knew existed. Project Bulwark had operated in secret since the 1950s, preparing for exactly this scenario. Commander Olivia Mason led him through security checkpoints to a large situation room. Wall screens showed images that made Jack's heart race. Sleek spacecraft under construction in hidden facilities, weapons tests conducted in remote locations, and training exercises for space combat. We've been preparing for hostile contact for 70 years, Olivia explained. After Roswell, the government realized we might not be alone and not all visitors would be friendly. How many ships do we have? Jack asked. 27 combat-ready vessels hidden throughout the solar system. The aliens never detected them because they were looking for standard radio and heat signatures. Our ships use technology reversed engineered from previous visitors. Jack stared at the images. Hope sparked in his chest. Do we stand a chance? Olivia's face was grim but determined. The hegemony has numbers and technology on their side, but they've grown lazy. They conquer through economics because it's easier than fighting. I bet their actual combat experience is minimal. So we have surprise and determination, Jack said. And something else they don't have, Olivia added. A history of fighting against impossible odds. Humans are good at that. Over the next 2 weeks, Earth prepared in secret. The public was told that negotiations with the aliens were ongoing. Meanwhile, crews boarded the hidden fleet. Weapons were loaded. Battle plans formed. 29 days after the ultimatum, Jack stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant alongside Captain Richard Foster. Through the view screen, Earth looked peaceful, beautiful, and worth fighting for. All ships report ready, sir, said the communications officer. Captain Foster turned to Jack. Last chance to back out, Ambassador. Jack thought about the aliens' threats, about the worlds that had already fallen to this extortion scheme. He thought about Earth's history, how humans had always fought tyranny, always stood up against empires that demanded tribute without giving freedom in return. Send the order, Captain, Jack said. Operation Independence is a go. The Earth fleet broke orbit, accelerating toward the alien monitoring satellites. The fight for Earth's freedom had begun. The Earth fleet moved silently through space. 27 ships spread out in attack formation as they approached the alien monitoring satellites. These weren't the bulky, obvious spacecraft humans had used for public space missions. These were sleek, dark vessels designed for war. On the bridge of the USS Defiant, Captain Richard Foster watched the main screen with steady eyes. At 43, he had spent half his life preparing for this moment, without knowing if it would ever come. All ships report weapons hot, said Lieutenant Paul Adams from the tactical station. Ready to fire on your command. Richard nodded. Remind all captains, synchronize strike. We take down all satellites at the same moment. Jack Harrington stood behind the captain's chair, hands clasped behind his back. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on his shoulders. If they failed here, Earth might not get another chance. Distance to targets? Richard asked. 30 seconds to optimal firing range, Paul replied. Richard turned to look at Jack. Last chance to back out, Ambassador. Jack shook his head. Earth doesn't surrender to bullies. Never has, never will. 10 seconds, Paul announced. The bridge fell silent. Each person felt the moment stretch like a wire pulled tight. Fire, Richard ordered. Across the darkness of space, energy beams lanced out from the Earth ships. Each one struck a monitoring satellite with perfect precision. The alien devices never transmitted a warning. They simply ceased to exist in flashes of light and clouds of debris. All targets destroyed, Paul reported, unable to keep a hint of pride from his voice. Jack let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Phase 1 complete. Now for the hard part. The Earth fleet regrouped and accelerated toward the outer solar system. Intelligence gathered from years of deep space monitoring had revealed a hegemony outpost near Pluto. This would be Earth's first true test against alien military forces. During the 3-day journey, Jack walked the ship. He talked with crew, members learning their stories. Some were career military, others scientists, all volunteers who had trained in secret for years. They knew the risks. They still came. On the 3rd day, Jack sat with Commander Olivia Mason in the ship's mess. At 38, Olivia had risen quickly through the ranks of Earth's secret space program. Her tactical mind was unmatched. "What do you think our chances are, really?" Jack asked, keeping his voice low. Olivia stirred her coffee. "Honestly, better than they should be. The hegemony has become complacent. They've conquered so many worlds through economic means that their actual fighting skills have weakened. But their technology is advanced, yes, but a weapon is only as good as the person using it." She leaned forward. "Plus, we have something they don't expect." "What's that?" She smiled slightly. "The human capacity for innovation under pressure. We're at our best when things look worst." An alert sounded throughout the ship. Jack and Olivia rushed to the bridge. "We're approaching the Kuiper Belt," Richard announced as they entered. "Sensors have detected the hegemony outpost." On the main screen, a structure appeared against the blackness of space. It looked like a small moon, but with geometric patterns covering its surface. Several smaller ships moved around it. "They haven't noticed us yet," said Paul from his station. "Our stealth systems are holding." Richard turned to Olivia. "Commander Mason, you designed our attack strategy, your call." Olivia studied the display. "Their defenses are minimal. They're not expecting trouble this far from Earth. We'll split into 3 groups. Alpha team targets their communications array, Beta team handles their defense systems, and Gamma team creates a diversion to draw out their patrol ships." Richard nodded. "Make it happen." Orders went out to the fleet. Ships broke formation, moving to their assigned positions. "We're in position," Paul reported minutes later. Richard straightened in his chair. "Open a channel to all Earth ships." When the channel opened, Richard spoke clearly. "This is Captain Foster. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every world that has fallen under the hegemony's control. They came to our home and demanded tribute. Today, we answer their demands. With fire," he paused, then added. "For Earth." "For Earth," the bridge crew echoed. Richard looked at the tactical display. "All ships, commence attack." The battle began with shocking speed. Earth ships fired on the outpost's key systems, while others engaged the patrol vessels. The aliens, caught completely by surprise, scrambled to respond. Jack watched the tactical display with a mixture of hope and dread. Earth ships moved with precision, executing Commander Mason's plan perfectly. But the aliens were recovering from their surprise. Their technology was indeed advanced. "They're launching more ships," Paul reported. "Smaller, faster vessels." "Defensive formation Delta," Olivia ordered without hesitation. "Focus fire on their lead ships." The space around Pluto lit up with weapons fire. 2 Earth ships took heavy damage. Another exploded in a silent flash that made Jack's heart sink. "We're losing the USS Intrepid," Paul reported grimly. "Direct all nearby ships to cover their escape pods," Richard ordered. Despite the losses, Earth forces pushed forward. They disabled the outpost's communication array, preventing it from calling for help. Then they targeted its defensive systems. "Their main weapons are down," Paul reported. "Outpost shields failing." Richard stood from his chair. "Open a channel to the outpost." When the connection was made, Richard spoke firmly. "This is Captain Richard Foster of the Earth Defense Force. Your tax collectors are not welcome in our system. Consider this our formal response to your demands." For several seconds, there was silence. Then a voice replied, the same musical, tone as the aliens who had visited Earth. "This is Subcommander Prelzir of the Galactic Hegemony. You cannot hope to defeat us, humans. Our reinforcements will destroy your primitive world." Richard smiled grimly. "Perhaps, but first we're going to capture your outpost and learn everything we can about your forces. Surrender now, and your people will be treated fairly." More silence. Then, "We accept your terms of surrender." A cheer went up from the bridge crew. Jack felt a surge of hope. They had won the first battle. Within hours, Earth forces secured the outpost. The captured aliens were placed in designated quarters, treated with respect, but kept under guard. Meanwhile, teams of human scientists and engineers began examining the alien technology and databases. Dr. Alan Pierce led the research team. His eyes were wide with excitement as he showed Jack what they'd found. "Their database contains information about their entire empire," he said. "Dozens of worlds under their control, paying these protection fees. And look at this," he pointed to a star chart showing the locations of hegemony fleets. "They're spread thin," Jack observed. "Covering too much territory with too few ships." Alan nodded. "Classic empire overextension, and there's more. Signs of unrest on several worlds. We're not the first to resist, just the first to fight back effectively." Jack studied the information. "Can we contact these other worlds?" "With this technology?" "Yes." Jack felt a plan forming. "We need to get this information back to Earth immediately. The President needs to see this." The journey back to Earth was tense. Everyone knew the hegemony would respond once they realized their outpost had fallen. But for now, Earth had won its first victory against the stars. As the blue planet came into view on the main screen, Jack felt a surge of determination. The real war was just beginning, but humanity had shown it would not bow to tyrants, even those from beyond the stars. Word of Earth's victory spread fast. When the fleet returned home, they found a world both celebrating and preparing for war. The capture of the alien outpost had bought Earth time, but everyone knew the hegemony would respond with force. In the White House Situation Room, President Eleanor Grant studied the information taken from the alien database. Maps of star systems filled the screens around her. Red dots showed hegemony strongholds. Blue dots marked conquered worlds paying the alien taxes. "How long until they realize their outpost has fallen?" she asked. Dr. Alan Pierce checked his notes. "Based on their communication patterns, 2 more days at most. Then perhaps a week before their response fleet arrives." Jack Harrington pointed to the star chart. "Look here. Their nearest major base is 3 systems away. That's where their counterattack will come from." President Grant nodded. "Can we defend against it?" Commander Olivia Mason stepped forward. "Not with our current forces. We need more ships." "How many more can we build in a week?" asked Vice President Samantha Wright. "None," Olivia replied. "But we don't need to build them. We can take them." All eyes turned to her. She pointed to a small blue dot near Earth's solar system. "The hegemony has a shipyard here in the Proxima Centauri system. They use it to build the collection vessels that gather resources from conquered worlds. Security is minimal because no one has ever dared attack them before." Jack understood immediately. "You want to steal their ships?" Olivia nodded. "We've studied their technology. Our pilots can fly them with minimal training." President Grant considered this. "A raid on an alien shipyard, it's risky." "Everything from now on is risky," Jack said quietly. "But if we wait for them to come to us, we fight on their terms." After a long moment, the president nodded. "Do it." 3 days later, Jack stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant once again. Captain Richard Foster had his crew on high alert as they approached the edge of the Proxima Centauri system. 15 Earthships had made the journey through space using technology adapted from the captured alien vessels. "Sensors show minimal defenses around the shipyard," reported Lieutenant Paul Adams. 6 patrol ships and standard automated systems. Richard studied the display. "Too easy. Where's the catch?" Jack had been wondering the same thing. "Maybe there isn't one. Remember what we learned about the hegemony. They've relied on fear for so long they've forgotten what it's like to be afraid." "Well, they're about to remember," Richard said. "All ships, Attack Pattern Bravo. The Earth fleet accelerated toward the shipyard. Alarms immediately sounded as alien defense systems detected the approaching vessels. The patrol ships moved to intercept, but they were sluggish, unprepared. "They're sending out a distress call," Paul reported. "Jam their long-range communications," Richard ordered. Earth ships engaged the alien patrols. The battle was brief but intense. 2 human vessels took damage, but all 6 alien ships were disabled or destroyed within minutes. "Shipyard defenses are activating," Paul warned. Energy weapons fired from the space station, but Earth ships were already executing evasive maneuvers just as Commander Mason had planned. "Boarding teams, prepare for deployment," Richard ordered. 5 Earth ships broke from the main group and docked with the shipyard. Teams of soldiers in spacesuits rushed. Inside, facing light resistance from the surprised alien workers, Jack watched the operation unfold on the tactical display. "How many ships can we expect to capture?" "Intelligence suggested at least 12 vessels in various stages of completion," Richard replied. "We'll take what we can fly." The boarding action lasted 47 minutes. Earth forces secured the shipyard section by section. Most alien workers surrendered quickly, unused to actual combat. "Shipyard secure," came the report from Major Diane Carter, who led the boarding teams. "We've identified 8 ships ready for immediate use, and 4 more that need minimal work to be operational." "Begin evacuation of the completed vessels," Richard ordered. "Download whatever data you can from their systems." While Earth forces worked to secure their prizes, a new alert sounded on the bridge. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up a large vessel entering the system," Paul said, his voice tense. Richard leaned forward. "Identification? It matches the profile of a hegemony command ship. Much larger than anything we've faced so far." Jack felt his stomach tighten. "They responded faster than we expected." Richard remained calm. "Major Carter, what's your status?" "We've prepped 6 ships for immediate departure. Need another 20 minutes for the rest." Richard made a quick decision. "Take what you have and go. We'll hold them off." "Sir?" Major Carter sounded uncertain. "That's an order, Major. Get those ships back to Earth." The newly captured alien vessels began to detach from the shipyard, guided by human pilots who had trained on simulators using data from the Pluto outpost. They moved clumsily at first, then with growing confidence. "Command ship will be in weapons. Range in 3 minutes," Paul reported. Richard turned to his crew. "All remaining Earth vessels, form up on the Defiant. We need to buy our people time to escape." The Earth ships moved into defensive formation between the retreating captured vessels and the approaching hegemony command ship. Jack watched as the massive alien vessel came into view on the main screen. It was easily 3 times the size of the largest Earth ship. "Open a channel," Richard ordered. When the connection was established, Richard spoke clearly. "This is Captain Richard Foster of the Earth Defense Force. Your presence in this system violates our territorial claims. Withdraw immediately." The response came in that same musical alien voice, but tinged with anger. "This is High Commander Krelnax of the Galactic Hegemony. Your actions are an act of war against the hegemony. Surrender now or be destroyed." Richard cut the channel. "Prepare all weapons. Target their propulsion systems." "Sir, we're outgunned," Paul said quietly. "I know," Richard replied, "but we only need to slow them down." The battle that followed was brutal. Earth ships darted around the massive command vessel, firing at key systems while avoiding its powerful weapons. 2 human vessels were destroyed in the first exchange. Another was crippled minutes later. "The captured ships are clear of the system," Paul reported. "They've made the jump back to Earth." Richard nodded grimly. "All remaining ships execute Escape Plan Delta." The Earth vessels began to withdraw, continuing to fire as they retreated. The Defiant took a direct hit to its port side, throwing Jack against a bulkhead. "Engine room reports damage to main drive," Paul called out over the alarms. "We're losing power." "Reroute emergency power," Richard ordered. "We need to make the jump." Engineers worked frantically to keep the ship running. As it pulled away from the battle, 3 Earth ships had already escaped. 2 more were destroyed. They're targeting us specifically, Paul warned. 2 more hits and we're finished. Richard looked at Jack. We've done what we came to do. The captured ships will help defend Earth. Jack nodded. It was worth it. The ship shuddered as another blast struck nearby. Then, just as the alien vessel prepared to fire again, the Defiant's engine surged. The stars stretched around them as they made the emergency jump back toward Earth. They had survived, barely, and they had succeeded in their mission. Earth, now, had alien ships to add to its fleet. But the hegemony knew they were fighting back now. The real war was just beginning. The USS Defiant limped back to Earth, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Emergency repair teams worked non-stop during the journey. In the medical bay, doctors treated wounded crew members. The raid on the Proxima Centauri shipyard had been successful, but at a heavy cost. Jack Harrington helped where he could, moving between decks to check on the crew. These people had risked everything, and Jack felt responsible for each one. When he finally returned to the bridge, Captain Richard Foster was still at his post, though his face showed extreme fatigue. You should rest, Jack told him. Richard shook his head. I'll rest when we're home. The main screen showed Earth growing larger as they approached. Around the planet, a new defense network was taking shape. The captured alien ships had arrived safely and were being integrated into Earth's fleet. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple vessels entering the solar system, Lieutenant Paul Adams reported, his voice tense despite his exhaustion. Richard straightened in his chair. Identification? Hegemony signatures. A lot of them. Paul looked up from his console. It's an invasion fleet. The Defiant docked at Earth's orbital station for emergency repairs. Meanwhile, in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Eleanor Grant called an emergency war council. Military leaders, scientists, and fleet commanders gathered around a large holographic display showing the approaching alien armada. 27 capital ships with fighter escorts, reported Admiral Linda Harris, who had taken command of Earth's expanded fleet. At 58, with short gray hair and piercing blue eyes, she had decades of naval experience. They'll reach Earth orbit in 18 hours. Dr. Melissa Warren, chief of the Xenotechnology Division, pointed to data scrolling across a side screen. We've made significant progress adapting their weapons and shield technology to our vessels, but we're still outgunned. President Grant looked around the table. Options? Commander Olivia Mason stepped forward. We can't match them ship for ship, but we can use what we learned from their database. The Hegemony fleet has a rigid command structure. If we can take out their flagship, it will throw the rest into confusion. Jack, who had joined the meeting after the Defiant docked, studied the display. Where is their flagship? Olivia pointed to a massive vessel at the center of the alien formation. Here, protected by their best ships. Getting to it won't be easy, Admiral Harris said. Jack thought for a moment. What if we don't need to get to it? What if we get it to come to us? All eyes turned to him. Jack explained his idea, a plan that relied more on human ingenuity than advanced technology. President Grant listened carefully, then nodded. Make it happen, she ordered. Preparations moved quickly. Every available ship was readied for battle. The captured alien vessels were placed under the command of Earth's best pilots. Dr. Warren's team worked around the clock to implement Jack's plan. As the Hegemony fleet approached Earth, Admiral Harris addressed the combined human forces from the bridge of Earth's new flagship, a captured Hegemony cruiser renamed the USS Liberty. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every world suffering under Hegemony control, she said, her voice carried to every ship in the fleet. They came to our home demanding tribute. We will show them that humans do not surrender to tyrants. The Earth fleet moved into position, forming a defensive line between the planet and the approaching aliens. Jack stood on the bridge of the Liberty alongside Admiral Harris, watching as the enemy ships grew larger on the main screen. They're hailing us, reported the communications officer. On screen, ordered Admiral Harris. The alien commander appeared, a tall figure with pale blue scales and entirely black eyes. I am High Commander Krell Nax of the Galactic Hegemony. Your resistance is futile and illogical. Surrender now, and some of your species may be permitted to survive. Admiral Harris stood tall. This is Admiral Linda Harris of Earth. We refuse your terms. We will never surrender our freedom. The alien made a dismissive gesture. Then you will be destroyed. Your primitive weapons cannot stand against our technology. Perhaps, Admiral Harris replied. But before you attack, you should know that we've sent messages to every world in your empire. We've told them about our resistance, shared the weaknesses we found in your systems. The revolution has already begun. This was not entirely a bluff. Earth had indeed sent messages to other subjugated worlds using communication technology from the captured outpost. But the effectiveness of those messages remained unknown. Krelnax's black eyes narrowed. Your lies cannot save you. They're not lies, Jack said, stepping forward. Check your long-range communications. How many distress calls are coming in from your outer territories? How many collection ships have failed to report in? The alien commander hesitated, just for a moment. It was enough to show that Jack's words had hit home. Enough talk, Krelnax said finally. Your resistance ends now. The screen went dark. They're moving into attack formation, reported the sensor officer. Admiral Harris nodded to Jack. Time for Phase 2. Jack activated his communication link. Dr. Warren, are you ready? Ready, came the response from Earth. Activation in 3, 2, 1. Throughout the solar system, hidden devices activated simultaneously. These were based on hegemony communication technology, but modified by Dr. Warren's team. They sent a massive surge of energy through the aliens' own communication network. On the hegemony ships, systems flickered and failed as the power surge overwhelmed their networks. Shields weakened. Weapons went offline. It wouldn't last long, but it gave Earth's forces a critical advantage. All ships. Attack Pattern Alpha, Admiral Harris ordered. Focus on their flagship. The Earth fleet surged forward. Their smaller, more nimble vessels darted between the larger alien ships, firing at specific weak points identified from the captured database. The hegemony forces, momentarily confused by their failing systems and the unexpected ferocity of Earth's attack, struggled to respond. Their rigid command structure became a weakness as captains waited for orders that couldn't get through their disrupted communications. Jack watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. Earth ships were taking damage, some catastrophically, but they were inflicting serious harm on the alien fleet, and they were getting closer to the flagship. Their systems are recovering, Dr. Warren reported. You have maybe 2 more minutes before they're back to full power. Admiral Harris turned to her weapons officer. Target their flagship's command center. Fire everything we've got. The Liberty unleashed a barrage of energy weapons, joined by 4 other Earth vessels that had broken through the alien defensive line. The combined firepower overwhelmed the flagship's weakened shields. Explosions bloomed across its hull. Direct hit on their command center, reported the tactical officer. On the screen, the massive alien vessel listed to one side, secondary explosions rippling along its length. The hegemony fleet's formation began to break apart as some ships moved to protect their damaged flagship, while others pressed the attack against Earth's forces. They're divided, Jack observed. Just as we hoped. Admiral Harris nodded. All ships continue the attack. Target their command vessels first. The battle raged for hours. Earth lost 17 ships. The hegemony lost 23, including their flagship, which eventually exploded in a massive fireball that damaged 2 nearby alien cruisers. Without central command, the remaining hegemony vessels fought individually. Their coordination shattered. Some began to retreat. They're breaking formation, the tactical officer reported. 4 enemy ships have jumped out of the system. A cheer went up from the bridge crew. The retreat quickly became a rout as more alien vessels fled. Jack felt a surge of hope. Against all odds, Earth had won its first major battle against the hegemony. But he knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would return with more ships. The war for Earth's freedom, and perhaps the freedom of countless other worlds, had only just begun. 3 years passed. The war spread across multiple star systems as Earth took the fight to the hegemony. What began as a desperate defense of one planet grew into a revolution that spanned the galaxy. The messages Earth sent to other subjugated worlds had worked better than anyone could have hoped. As news of Earth's successful resistance spread, other planets rose up against their oppressors. Jack Harrington stood by the window in his office on the renamed Liberty Station, Earth's primary space headquarters. The station had once been a hegemony outpost, now repurposed to serve as the command center for the Alliance of Free Worlds. Through the reinforced glass, Jack could see ships coming and going. Vessels from Earth, yes, but also from Proxima III, Tau Ceti, and a dozen other worlds that had joined the fight. A chime sounded at his door. "Enter," Jack called. Admiral Linda Harris walked in, her uniform showing the wear of someone too busy to care about appearances. "The council is ready," she said. Jack nodded and followed her to the large meeting chamber at the center of the station. Representatives from 27 formerly subjugated worlds sat around a circular table. Some looked human, others very different. The reptilian Draxians, the four-armed Ceti, the crystalline Lumerians. All had suffered under hegemony rule. All had fought for their freedom. President Eleanor Grant joined by video link from Earth. At her side stood Dr. Melissa Warren, whose breakthroughs in alien technology had helped turn the tide of war. "The hegemony fleet has withdrawn from the Orion sector," Admiral Harris reported, bringing up a star map on the main display. Red areas showing hegemony control had shrunk dramatically over the past year. Their resources are stretched thin trying to maintain control of their core systems. "What about their leadership?" asked the Draxian representative, his scaled face unreadable to human eyes. "Still entrenched on their capital world of Tassus Prime," Jack replied, "but increasingly isolated." President Grant spoke up. "Our intelligence suggests growing dissent even among the 7 ruling species. Not all of them supported this war, and the losses they've suffered have created political divisions." The council discussed strategy for another hour. The war had reached a critical phase. The hegemony, once seemingly invincible, now fought desperately to hold on to its remaining territory. After the meeting, Jack returned to his quarters to prepare for the most important mission of the war. The next day, he would lead a diplomatic team to Tassus Prime itself, not for battle but for peace talks. The journey took 6 days aboard the USS Resolution, Earth's newest flagship commanded by Captain Beth Collins. At 41, Beth had distinguished herself in multiple battles against the hegemony. Her ship carried not weapons for this mission, but representatives from every world in the Alliance. Jack spent most of the journey studying reports and preparing his approach. The stakes could not be higher. A successful negotiation would end the bloodshed, while failure might extend the war for years. When they arrived at Tassus Prime, a hegemony escort guided them to the capital city. Jack was surprised by the beauty of the alien world, soaring crystal towers, hanging gardens, and water that flowed upward in defiance of gravity. The hegemony had built its wealth on the suffering of other worlds, but they had created wonders with that wealth. The Grand Council chamber of the hegemony stood at the center of the capital. 7 thrones for the 7 ruling species faced a single podium where Jack would speak. The chamber filled with hegemony officials and alliance representatives. High Chancellor Vex Moore, leader of the Tassian species and head of the Hegemony Council, spoke first. "We have agreed to these talks in good faith," the alien said, its musical voice carrying throughout the chamber. "Though your rebellion has caused great damage to the established order of the galaxy." Jack approached the podium. He had practiced this speech many times, but now, facing the beings who had tried to enslave Earth, he spoke from the heart. 3 years ago, representatives of your hegemony came to Earth and demanded we pay tribute. You called it a protection fee. We called it what it was, extortion. Jack paused, looking at each of the 7 rulers. You believed we would submit as so many worlds had before us. You were wrong. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Jack continued. Humans have a long history of resisting tyranny. When faced With taxation without representation, we rebel. It's in our nature. What you didn't realize is that this nature exists in all free beings, not just humans. Jack gestured to the diverse representatives of the Alliance. Every world you subjugated harbored the same desire for freedom. We simply showed them it was possible to fight back. High Chancellor Vexmore shifted uncomfortably on his throne. What do you propose, Ambassador Harrington? You cannot hope to destroy the hegemony completely. We don't want to destroy you, Jack replied. We want to transform you. The galactic hegemony must end, but in its place we can build something better. A true alliance of worlds based on mutual respect and fair exchange. Jack presented the terms the alliance had agreed upon. The hegemony would abandon its system of forced tributes. All worlds would be free to join or leave the new galactic community. Trade would continue, but on fair terms agreed upon by all parties. And if we refuse? Asked another of the 7 rulers. Admiral Harris, standing beside Jack, answered that question. The war continues. More of your ships destroyed. More of your worlds joining our alliance. You've seen our determination. Ask yourselves if your empire is worth fighting to the last Tassian. The Hegemony Council requested time to consider the terms. For 3 days, Jack and the alliance representatives waited. Dr. Warren used the time to study Tassian technology, while Admiral Harris prepared contingency plans in case the talks failed. On the 4th day, they were summoned back to the council chamber. High Chancellor Vexmore looked diminished somehow, as if the weight of the failing empire had physically pressed down upon him. We accept your terms, he said simply. The Galactic Reformation Treaty was signed that day. The hegemony was dissolved, replaced by the Galactic Cooperative of Independent Worlds. Each planet would govern itself while participating in a council where all had equal voice. 1 year later, Jack stood in New York where a monument was being unveiled, the exact spot where the hegemony had first delivered their demands to Earth. The monument showed not a warship or weapon, but a simple parchment document, Earth's Declaration of Independence from 1776. Below it, a plaque read, "When faced with taxation without representation, humans have always responded the same way. Some lessons must be taught more than once." President Grant gave a short speech, thanking those who had fought and remembering those who had died. 1 through 719 human lives lost in the conflict, and thousands more from other worlds who had joined the fight for freedom. Afterward, she approached Jack, who now served as Earth's representative to the Galactic Cooperative. "What's next?" she asked him. Jack looked up at the sky, thinking of all the stars and worlds beyond. "We explore, we learn, we build something better than what came before." Captain Beth Collins joined them, now commanding Earth's first official exploration vessel. "The fleet is ready, Madam President. Not for war this time, but for discovery." President Grant smiled. "Then let's introduce ourselves to the galaxy properly this time. Not as conquerors or the conquered, but as equals ready to build a better future together." As the sun set over New York, Jack thought about the long journey that had brought them here. It had begun with aliens demanding taxes and humanity answering with defiance. It had ended with a new understanding between worlds, that freedom was not just a human concept but a universal right worth fighting for. The stars were waiting, and this time, Earth would meet them as friends, not enemies.